Everybody wants that vintage tone, right? That's what makes it so valuable. It's an instrument that can't easily be reproduced because it has gone through that natural organic aging process. So we're already starting off at a disadvantage by not having wood available to us that has gone through, has been dried and gone through that process. Well, that's where we benefit from a new modern technique. Well, not modern, it's actually been around since the 1930s in France. It's called torrification. Now, torrification, or more specifically torrefaction, is just a fancy word for roasting. In fact, it was originally used to describe the coffee making process. It involves a purpose-built oven where oxygen is removed from the chamber. The temperature is then increased from around 200 to 300 degrees. And over the process of just a few hours, that wood begins to change and adapt. And what happens is all of that moisture is drawn out, and the cellular structure, if you looked at it under a microscope, when it's finished, is nearly identical to a piece of wood that has gone through a natural aging process over the series of decades. So what I've got here is some wood that I have purchased that has gone through that torrification process. You can see that it's actually quite a bit darker in color. I've got two pieces of Sitka spruce here, the natural state underneath and then the torrified piece on top, so you can tell definitely a difference in the colors. I've got a soundboard here that's also been torrified, two book match pieces that have been joined together and already ready for some inlay. Even the brace wood is gone through that torrification process. We want everything on the guitar, that soundboard, to be responsive like it has been aged over those decades. Well, I've already got the soundboard cut out, so I think let's go ahead and start on the brace wood. We'll get those over to the bandsaw and get them cut out. Before I get started fitting those braces, I went ahead and put in an inlay in here. It's just real simple for a rosette, kind of that throwback to that late 30s, early 40s Martin. Simple black, white, black, a little ivory in the middle there. I'm gonna grab my acrylic template for laying out the braces. I love these, makes it so much easier to know where those braces go. Use these little locator pins. With these all sized, I can just throw those into the channel, mark the ends, cut off the excess, transfer that mark. And then those should fit right in there. One of the things I really like about using a template like this is that it makes cutting the X-brace cross section where you have to overlap the two joints a whole lot easier. With this first one in here, I'm just gonna take where the acrylic template comes up on this side, I'm just gonna make a mark there and make a mark here. I'm gonna do the same thing on the back side using the template as the guide. And since this one is going to be the bottom of the lap joint, what I want to do is I want to transfer these measurements to the top because I'm going to be cutting out a portion here that's going to be for the other piece to cross section there. So let me transfer these measurements over to the top side. Transfer those. I can then just connect those two lines. I can actually use the template as a guide for that too, to get the angle right. But I connect those two lines together. And now I know that's the section that I'm going to remove. Now, to know how far down I need to cut for that lap joint, what I like to do is just go ahead and get a measurement on the height with my calipers here. So I've got 12.22. Well, 12.2. If I divide that in half, then I'll get 6.1. So I can go ahead and set my caliper to 6.1 millimeters. And then I can use the teeth on there to draw a line. Let my pencil follow right into that groove. And now I know that I've got exactly the halfway point on here to be able to cut down to. So I'll know that I'll get 50-50 between the two pieces. Now for the top brace we're going to do, or the top lap brace, we're going to do something similar. We're going to go ahead and mark using the template on the inside. And for this one we can just go ahead and use those marks and then connect those lines. Right marks here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be removing that section. This is the bottom of this one. It's going to sit in the slot like here. And then I'm going to do this, take that same depth measurement. I've still got it locked in on my caliper. And use that to draw the line again. That tells me how deep I will go. And when you cut these, you want to cut them shallow on the initial pass, and then you can deepen them as needed once you start to tighten up the fit, because you really do want that to be a nice, tight fit. A bit of a pro tip is, now that you've got your lines drawn on here, if you were just to cut these individually, trying to get them to line up for the angles to be just right so that they mirror each other is going to be difficult. But if you bring them together like this, align the angles of the marks you just made, and now put this in the vise and cut it at the same time, you'll get both of those to be consistent. And remember, we're going to cut just to the inside of these lines to make sure that we can come back and widen if we need to, but that we don't take too much off. We want these, this joint to be exceptionally tight with just enough tolerance for us to get these two pieces together. Now I can come in with the chisel. I can feel where my indentation is from the scribe line that I put in earlier, and I'm going to come just above that, and I can pop that out. Don't want to go with my chisel all the way through here, because then I could risk tear out on the other side, so I'll come from the opposite side, pop that out. Now I can come back in with a file and just clean up that slot just a little bit. If I missed on my lines at all, this is the opportunity to make that correction. Okay, let's test fit these. Oh yeah, nice and tight. You should almost feel them snap together if you've got that joint good and tight. As you can see, I don't have, turn it this way, I don't have the depth quite right yet, but as far as the width of the slot, very good, nice and tight, all good there. So I'll just go ahead and file this down a little bit more to get the depth right. A few more test fits back and forth, and what you want to end up with when you're all said and done is these should fit together nice and tight. There should be no gaps in there at all. They should seat so they are level on the top and level on the bottom. Then you know you've got everything tight. And if you've done all of your alignment correctly, when you go to put this back in the template, it should directly fit in there, no force. Perfect alignment. I'll go ahead and put just a little dab of glue down in this joint. We'll even put just a little bit in the sides here. Doesn't take much. Push those back together. Perfect. Now before I go any further with the bracing, I want to go ahead and start working on the bridge support plate. The reason for that is the bridge support plate is actually going to tuck underneath of the X braces just by a little bit. So I need to get that glued down first. Let's work on that next. For the bridge support plate, I have a separate template. So let's get the X brace out of here. Come back to that in a minute. I'm going to take this template off, and we're going to use this one instead. This template will allow me to precisely position the bridge support plate underneath of the X brace. Since there's glue involved at this point, this is where I do want to start working with my radius plate. Just helps to keep all of this so I'm not working against the glue later on. So I'll just put this onto here. And then I've got the push pins actually are aligned even on my radius board here. I'll put some weight on here. It's not critical that I'm working with the radius board at this point, but when I start introducing glue onto the soundboard, I really don't want to be working against that glue later on. So I think this is the best opportunity to start making sure that I'm working with the final radius that I want to have the soundboard in. After an hour in the vacuum press, this should be all good. I'm gonna draw a couple of lines on here through my support braces up here for the sound hole. Now when I put the bracing template back on here, you're going to be able to see how the bridge support plate extends just past the X-brace. So this is the portion that we're going to be cutting out to tuck underneath of that X-brace. With the bridge support in place, now we need to go ahead and get the radius in the bottom side of the X-brace. We'll do that over on the radiusing machine. That machine is amazing. Now the neat part about these templates is that if I use a longer pin and then I place the bracing template back over the top, I can put the X-brace in. So the X-brace wood is right side up, this is the top here. If I flip it upside down and place back into the channel, I can then place the bridge support template right over the top using those locator pins. And now I have the perfect guide to draw where that bridge support plate is going to intersect with each of the X-brace positions. So now I can draw a line on the inside of the guide, both sides. And I can remove that. And now I'll have the perfect guideline to be able to carve out where that bridge is going to be underneath. I already know that my bridge plate is 2 millimeters thick, so if I set my caliper right at 2 millimeters and I lock that in, then I can scribe a line right below the guides that I just drew, and I'll know that if I carve that piece out, then I will be right at the depth of the bridge support plate. And right now I'm just staying inside of those lines. Can always come back, make that a little bit wider, but I'm just trying to pierce through there so that I can start chipping that out. I can double check the depth of that with my caliper. Just a little shallow there. And now when you've got both sides all notched out and to the correct depth, you should be able to get that to lock right on, and you'll see that it is flat all the way along there and tucked up underneath the braces. That's exactly what we're looking for. For the two tone bars, we're gonna do something real similar as what we did with the bridge support plate. We're gonna tuck the very end of those underneath of the bottom of the X brace. I've gone ahead and marked the angles that they're going to meet up with the X brace and marked the ends where we need to trim these longer ones off. So let's go ahead and get those cut. Now, before we go any further with fitting these, I gotta go ahead and get a radius in the bottom of those as well. So back to the radiusing machine. Now, in order to keep my template together, I had to cut these slots short. I can't make them meet up with the actual X-brace slot, otherwise my acrylic template would break. So what I need to do now is go ahead and carve down the very end of the braces so that they'll fit underneath of the template and I can match them up. Now I can tuck both of those underneath of the template while still keeping them lined up so that I can make some marks on the X-brace. So by flipping the whole template upside down and keeping the braces in, now I can mark exactly where I need to make the cuts. With those slots cut, if we put the X-brace back in here, seat that down, and we put our braces in, or our tone bars, I should say, we should find that those will tuck right underneath of the X-brace. Just like that. Now, in terms of bracement placing, that's about it. There's not a lot left here. Yes, we do still have to do a couple of finger braces on each side and the transverse brace down here, but those are just standard. There's nothing specific about that. I just wanted to show you these pieces because they are a little different than the standard build, but they're specific to the way that we do our builds. So that is it for this episode in the series. I'm gonna get these glued up while we're away, and when we come back, we'll get into carving these braces and ultimately voicing the soundboard. I am excited to have y'all along for this series. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.